And welcome back to the shop. We've been working on a Christmas project, project number 1 for this year, 2024, and it's going to be the Henry Toybox. Now we've done segment number 1 where we explained the drawings, how to set up the tools. This is a project designed by Wayne Mack, a friend of mine, and it's a terrific project. We had to do some things converting from metric to imperial and work through the different sheet sizes and thicknesses between here in England. Wayne lives in Essex. What we're up to now is we're about ready to load the machine, load the code, we'll go through our checklist. So without any further ado, we'll get started with that. The first step, of course, is to get the machine loaded. So we're going to put a piece of 3/4 inch MDF on the machine. I'm going to use my crazy horse dolly to move it over there. Hang on, I'll be right back. Now I'm going to use my location pins to set it in place. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right work offset. That's number 55. You notice that when I did that, it automatically put the pins away. Now I'm ready to load my code. And before I do anything else, I'm going to do a little bit of checking on my setup. The most important thing that I need to make sure is that the code matches the setup on the tools. Okay. Now I've got 2 places to do this. Spire does a nice job and it tells me each one of the tools and the order they're going to be running in. So my first tool is tool number 2 in the rack, and it should be an 085 drill. My second tool is number 3 in the rack, and it's a 188 drill. Then the third cut actually moves to position 1, which is a 1/2 inch compression bit. And then the fourth cut is tool station number 4, and that's a 6mm end mill. So if you watch the segment of how we programmed everything, we talked a little bit about end mills and metric and imperial. So that's good to go. I'm going to walk back and double check that, make sure it's all good. So number 1 is actually in the spindle from the warm-up. That's my 1/2 inch. Number 2 is the 080. Number 3 is the 177. And number 4 is my compression. So we're all good to go there. Everything's synced up. We're ready to run this part. Now there's not much to see at this point. I mean, I'm going to leave the camera running and let you watch the machine do its thing, but it will get noisy as I turn on the air and everything else. So I'm going to put on my headphones and we're just going to watch it work. Well, that job is done. I've cleaned off the table. We've got 2 fronts, 2 backs, 4 sides, a left and a right, 2 of each, and 2 of the lids, all ready to go. So we'll be ready to assemble those. Now, as I mentioned before, we were going to use some cam and dowel, so there's another couple of steps. We will probably round over the edges, do a little sanding, and then we have to drill holes for the dowel pins. So the pins, the posts, have to go in, and they go through a hole up into this cam hole here, or this one here, if you can see that. So we're going to drill a hole through this edge. I've got a tool for that, I'll show you. Okay, we're back in the shop, and the next job we have to do is, these are the front panels on our Toybox, and this is supposed to have a window here, so we can slide in a panel from the back side where this rabbet will be cut. Has been cut, and that will let us personalize these quickly and easily. So I can do a batch of toy boxes and then come back and just make another batch of just the personalization panels. So that's the job. To do that job, I could build a fancy fixture, but I already have my index pin system here, and I've set a piece of waste against the pins. So it's sitting, and it's 16 inches wide. What I'm going to do is trim it down to 15 7/8, so I have a true known edge. And then this part will simply come against that new edge. And once I bring these 2 edges flush, I'm going to be accurate within a few hairs, 10-15 thousandths of an inch. So that's going to be good enough for the window panel. without any further explanation, I'm going to go ahead and run the camera, put my headphones on, and then we'll chat when it's all done. So be back in a bit. Okay, now here's the tricky bit. This has already been trimmed to 15 7/8 wide, so that's a known. In my program, I set up this edge of the part at 15.875. Stutter a little bit there. Now all I need to do is get these two edges flush, and that looks really good. My vacuum should hold this in place. I'm going to do a little quick test on that. We're going to turn the vacuum on. So now it's held exactly where the program thinks it is, and I don't have to worry about it being canted a little bit this way or this way. It's perfectly straight with the machine, and it's perfectly at this X position because this is my 0 point on this work offset. I'm on work offset G55 if anybody cares. So now I'm ready to load the other program, put on my headphones, load the other program, and we'll run that program and cross our fingers, hope we did everything right. Okay, seems like the compressor turns on right about the time I'm finishing a job and I want to talk, so I had to wait for it to crank through and stop. Did a little bit of sanding. I'm going to bring this up close so you can see. These edges are just a little fuzzy. When I cut it the opposite way, when I do the V-bevel first and then cut out the rabbet, they're really nice and clean. But doing it this way, which was necessary because all of these location pin holes had to be perfect, and so I do this upside down, then I flip and cut this. So we're just going to do a little bit of sanding, and then this is going to be ready for paint. So that worked out great. Now we're ready to do some dry fit, show you how the cam hardware works, and later we'll come back and paint these and get them all decorated. So thanks for sticking around. We'll come back when we're ready to do the dry fit. Okay, we'll get a kind of a bird's eye view set up so you can see what's going to happen next. The box is going to be held together with cams and dowels. These are the dowels, these are the cams. The cams go into these little holes. The dowels are going to go into this panel, into these holes. And then this will drop onto the pin, and when that happens, the cams will go into this groove and bind it all together. Pretty clever system. It's a Haffel system, or Haffel. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. The only thing I have to do is I have to get that hole located directly over the center of that hole there. So I built this little fixture, and so when I slide this in here, and I've got my pin on my guide here, when it slips into the hole, this is locked in place. Can't go anywhere. So now I'm going to grab my drill bit, come back in a minute, we're going to start drilling holes. Should have had all that set up before I turned on the camera, but we're good to go now. So I'm just going to, again, this just lays on top. The pin drops through this hole and into that hole. Now that's perfectly lined up. I just have to drill this. And if you're interested, that's a 280 drill, 0.28. Okay, that's one end. I've got 4 ends to do. I won't make you watch through that. I'll be back in a minute to show you how the dowels go in. Okay, the next step is to put in the dowels. I'm going to slide this over here where you get a little bit better view. These are my dowels. These are the holes. I'm not going to put in all the hardware because this is just a dry fit. If you're interested, I use a number 3 driver bit for this. Now, you can use a cordless drill driver, of course, for this. I prefer to just use a good old screwdriver so that I get exactly the right set every time. I don't have to worry about whether I've over torqued it. The distance from here to here is critical when I assemble my parts. So there's one side. There are holes here for those stays that are going to hold the door from falling closed and smashing fingers. So this has to be to the back. That means this, which is the front, would go on this side over here. Now I'm going to put these cams in. Let me see if I can get in close enough. I don't know if you can see, there's an arrow right there. The arrow goes towards the hole, this hole on the edge. So I'll throw that one in and drop that one in. And didn't get it lined up perfectly, but that's why I have my screwdriver here. Now I can take this, find the holes, line them up, drop that in place. See how nice that slips in place? And then all I have to do is turn this clockwise until it stops. There's a hard stop on it, and that is solid, absolutely solid. Let's do the other side. This is the back side. So let's put in some cams. Got carried away. So here's my cams. That's nice to slip fit into place. Turn that till it locks. Right there. Now, if we move a few things out of the way, you'll see we have the makings of a really nice toy box. Hinges are going to go back here. We'll come back and put those on in a little bit. And I know my head is being cut off by this shot, but I wanted you to be able to see the assembly process. We'll come back in a minute and do a little bit more. Okay, so I've got it up on end, and I have put the dowels in this part here. What I'm going to do next is put the cams in. The arrows are going to go towards these holes, so the arrows are going to point up. And then we're just going to align the dowels. Tap it down. Once that's down, I'm just going to go inside with my number 3 tip screwdriver again and tighten those. Now normally at this point, I would have taken some dimensions and cut my bottom panel and put that in, but then it would have blocked the view a little bit. So I'm not going to put the bottom panel in until after I've painted. But let's look at the rest of this. So there's my toy box. Over here somewhere I have a lid. This is the lid. It's held in place with kitchen cabinet hinges. When we're all done, this should be flush, and there's going to be a little gap about 1/8 of an inch on either side, and of course those great kitchen cabinet hinges will let me tune that to get the gap parallel and make it look good. So another break. We're going to come back once I've organized my hinges and my hinge hardware. Okay, I've put one of the hinge bases in. These have a removable mounting plate that has a little snap lock on it, so it makes it easy to take the doors on and off. So I'm going to start putting in the hardware. Again, I'm just using my screwdriver. I don't want to risk stripping anything out at this point. We still have to paint, and all the hardware has to come out before I paint. Now these go in these holes here. This has a secondary set of holes that I can use once I've attuned it and adjusted it. I can put those in for a little bit of extra security. For now, we'll just stick these in so we can dry fit, make sure that the door is going to fit right. Well, you probably can't see this, but in the program we drilled some holes here, some holes here, here, and then on the side over here. there are two types of these stays. The stays that will mount to the sidewall and stays that they're called center mounts, and they just go anywhere on the top and bottom or back panel and the lid. So I've thrown some holes in there for both. I'm going to put on the side style. That's the kind Wayne uses and recommends. So we're going to start with that. Then we're going to show you what the other ones look like. I've had an easier time finding the center stays. And then I'm only stocking one side, not a left and a right. So there's the advantage there. Now this is a little tricky to hold this and hold this in place at one time. There's probably a clamp I should dig out of my toolbox to use. But I'm just going to see if I can't get it started without chasing into the toolbox. Okay, that's nice and tight. That's not enough to hold this up. The weight's not going to be held with just one of these. So I'm going to have to put one on the other side. But first I'm going to drive in this bottom screw. The other side's going to look the same, so I'll probably turn the camera off while I chase that around for a while. Before I do that, let me just show you this. What holds the weight is the spring inside here. You can see that spring. So as this top lever is compressed, then that puts tension in that, so it lifts easier and keeps it going down slow. You can get different weights for different sized lids, and so you can play around with that quite a bit. I'm back, and we've installed the stays. I ended up using a little piece of block of wood and a clamp, and clamping it against the left stay to hold the lid up so I could put the right side stay in. Now again, there are other stays that would have mounted in holes here and here that would have gone on the back and the door. I'm going to probably try both types before I'm all done, but I like the way this works. As you can see, I can sit there and my little head can go inside there and it's not going to fall down and give me a headache. So once I get down to about here, she closes. Nice soft close. I do have the ability to do a little tuning, although my door seems almost perfectly spaced in there. So that's just called dumb luck. All right, we're going to do the panels next for personalizing. We're going to do that. And then it's all get it ready for paint prep and then do a batch of painting. So we'll get back to you when this looks pretty and is ready for gift giving. Thanks. We'll talk to you later. This morning I'm going to wrap up the Toybox project. So I built the second box. I've installed all of the personalization panels. I've also installed all the hardware on the lid and inside of the box. So we did this on the other box, so this is just a review. The difference on this step here is these are what we call center stays. The center stays are mounted to the lid and to the back wall of the box. Their job, of course, again, to remind you, is to keep the lid from falling fast. So it comes down slowly, keeps little fingers from being smashed. So I'm about to get started on that. I'll just take this and set it aside, and so you can see inside of the box I've already installed the hardware. These are the bases for my kitchen hinges. Now they just snap together with this part here. We'll see if I can do that gracefully, and then we'll move on to the next step. That was graceful enough. So the lid is on. Now we'll put these stays in, and the stays have already been mounted here on the bottom. They get mounted here, and I'm going to prop the door open. I'll come back after I've done that, and we'll put those screws in. So I'm going to attempt to just hold the door open, get this screw started in the hole. Now this is a big box, so one stay won't hold it open. I'm going to put in the stay on the opposite side. Now, it takes two screws. I'm not going to put them in because all I'm doing here is dry fitting everything to make sure this works. But you can see that as I close this, it stays wherever I want it to stay and I really have to kind of close it myself. A really nice feature on a box this big. This is a big box with a big lid. And so that pretty much wraps things up. So here we have a nice gift. It's ready for sanding, paint, wrap it up, put a bow on it, give it away for Christmas. This is part of our Christmas project, Christmas gift plan, the Christmas plan gift exchange, I guess you want to say it. So anybody who wants to participate can send us a plan. We're going to put all those plans into a pile, and everybody's going to see everybody else's plans. So that'll give us all a great big pile of resources to be able to pick from if we want to build some nice Christmas gifts this year. Just want to thank everybody who's participated so far. This plan was contributed by Wayne Mack from Canby Island, England. And this is his specialty, and he was kind enough to let anybody who wanted to join the exchange have a set of the plans. Plus, you'll also get the videos on how to program, how to set it up, and of course, how to assemble it. So thanks to everybody that's been involved. Thanks to Wayne Mack for this gift, to all of you woodworkers, and essentially to wrap things up, happy woodworking and happy holidays.